Well, as agriculture continues to cope with COVID-19, speculation is looming over the status of rural communities. University of Nebraska researchers have developed the Thriving Index, comparing rural areas to similar regions across the upper Midwest. Director of the UNL Bureau of Business Research, Eric Thompson, joins us now. And Eric, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us here this morning. We appreciate it. If you would bring us up to speed, of course, on this Thriving Index and what it offers.
Well, the Thriving Index compares 8 rural Nebraska regions with their peers around the upper Midwest. The goal of the Thriving Index is to benchmark, to compare their growth and economic prosperity with their peers around the region. And specifically, we have 47 measures where we compare things such as economic growth, economic diversity, education attainment, demographic renewal, cost of doing business, and quality of life.
So what are some of the findings of the Thriving Index here in the midst of 2020?
Well, we found that Nebraska regions tended to be strong in terms of quality of life compared to their peers, but they lagged a little bit in terms of education attainment, the cost of doing business, and in some cases, infrastructure.
So how can our rural communities use the information gathered by the index and make it applicable?
Well, I think it's important to compare with your peers. The peers are other rural regions around the upper Midwest, so it gives you a good overall measure of how is your economy doing. If a region were to find that it was consistently lagging its peers, it might want to reassess its general approach to economic development and economic growth. However, if you're keeping up with your peers or leading your peers, we found 2 parts of the state, the Tri-Cities area as well as the Norfolk and Columbus areas were well ahead of their peers. In those cases, your economic development strategy is working fairly well. Another use is to find those specific measures where your region seems to be lagging and try to work on that. So a lot of Nebraska regions need to enhance their education attainment, high school graduation rates, getting people to attend higher education and come back to the region. So it points out things like that you can specifically work on. It's also useful for practical matters. Some organizations will use the data from the Thriving Index as part of their grant applications.
Eric, taking into account the index this year, were there maybe any surprises that sort of stuck out to you?
It is a little bit surprising, the results for education attainment. Nebraska is a state that prides itself on education, has a great history with success in education. I think what's going on there is we're comparing ourselves to a group of other states that also do really well in terms of education outcomes. So we're just a little bit behind that highly successful group.
All right, well, you can go on to ruralprosperityne.unl.edu for more information. Eric, thanks for joining us. University of Nebraska Lincoln Bureau of Business Research Director Eric Thompson joining us on location in Lincoln.